Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of Regional SAN and SASD to order this morning. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, I will go ahead and call the roll. Okay. Directors Bruins.
Present.
Carr.
Here.
Hanson. Harris.
Here.
Hume. Jennings. Kennedy.
Here.
Christoph.
Here.
McGlashan.
Here.
Morin.
Here.
Nottoli.
Here.
Peters. Serna.
Here.
Warren. McGarvey.
Here.
Villegas. I thought I saw him in the room. Mr. Gita.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you.
In accordance with Government Code 54952.3, compensation for meetings of these legislative bodies is required to be verbally disclosed. The amount of $100 will be paid for each board member participating today as a member of Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, and the amount of $100 will be paid for each board member participating today as a member of Sacramento Area Sewer District. Compensation for Sacramento County supervisors and City of Sacramento council members is paid to the county and city respectively to partially offset the cost of those governments. Compensation for other board members is delivered to the individuals directly. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation and Area Sewer Districts is being broadcast live on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T UVerse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and video and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv, and today's meeting will replay Sunday at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. If you're wishing to address the board, please fill out a speaker identification form located in the back of the room, and please hand it to me. And when you address the board, please state your name for the record.
Thank you. First item, please.
And for your first item, you are acting as the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District. It's the election of a chair and a vice chair of the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District boards.
Thank you. We'll open the election for the chair.
Move Phil Serna for chair.
Thank you. Second. There's a motion and a second to elect Phil Serna as our next chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And vice chair?
Who's next in line?
Is it Larry?
So for vice chair, this is alternates between the county and the cities. So the turn for this year is from City of Sacramento.
Okay.
From City of Sacramento, traditionally what we do is whoever gets to the vice chair will get into the chair position next year. And that vice chair also serves for Regional SAN and SASD. So a member that's serving on both boards has typically been chosen. But again, if the board decides to have somebody that doesn't serve on the SASD, then we need to select two vice chairs.
Okay. So who from the city serves on both?
So I'd like to nominate Larry Carr.
Okay. I'll second that nomination. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations. And as I turn this over to Phil, I just want to thank the board, particularly the two supervisors sitting on both sides of me, for helping me manipulate my monitor this year. I want to thank Prabhakar for all the support you've given me and the rest of the staff. It's been a joy to serve. And with that,
Excuse me, Madam Chair, we do need to have someone else from SASD make the motion for the vice chair. We can use the first motion for both boards, but I need someone else from an SASD board to make the vice chair nomination.
The second or the nomination?
The vice chair nomination.
nomination from SASD. Okay.
I need someone from the SASD board.
I'll nominate then Mr. Carr for vice chair, and someone from SASD second that?
Second.
Thank you. All right, now, it's been moved and seconded. You almost got out of it, Larry.
Half of it anyway.
Yeah, to nominate Larry Carr for vice chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay.
I accept again.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now I will gratefully turn it over to Mr. Serna.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeannie. Appreciate your service as chair for the past year. Okay, next item, please.
You are still acting as the Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District. Item number 2 is the approval of 2016 legislative and regulatory policies.
This time every year that we bring our legislative and regulatory policies for your approval, and there are very few changes. Terry will highlight those changes, and at the end what we're looking for is an approval. This is what we'll use to advocate our positions for the remainder of the year.
Great. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Terry Mitchell, and I manage the legislative and regulatory affairs for both Regional SAN and SASD. And as Prabhakar mentioned, we're bringing forward our 2016 legislative and regulatory policy document for your approval. By way of some background, the district engages in a variety of legislative and regulatory policy issues, and we participate in these various policy forums with the goal of ensuring that policies are based on environmental effectiveness, cost-effective, and economic feasibility. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that our ratepayers are protected. We have an environmental stewardship responsibility, but a fiscal responsibility as well. We advocate on a variety of issues in both the local, state, and federal arenas, and we approach our lobbying in a multifaceted approach. We'll have direct meetings, one-on-one meetings with various policymakers. We'll attend and testify at various public hearings, and then we'll also submit detailed comment letters outlining our concerns and suggested amendments to various legislative issues or regulatory efforts. The document that we have before you today, there's not very many changes. The key remaining issues are focusing on items like watershed management, water quality, water recycling. Of course, Bay Delta issues are still front and center along with infrastructure funding. For purposes of brevity, I'm just going to highlight some of the changes that we've made in this year's document. A new category has been added under the wastewater operations and funding issues, specifically focusing on supply chain issues for critical equipment and materials. As you're aware, Regional SAN receives a lot of items through rail cars or through trucks, and we need to ensure that those supply chains aren't interrupted and jeopardize both our compliance with our permits as well as public safety and the environment. A few other bullets that have been added are supporting the development of environmental management strategies that are based on cost-effective and attainable outcomes, supporting actions that account for cross-media impacts in the decision-making process, supporting actions that would provide funding priority for projects that have multiple benefits, such as the South County Ag Water Recycling Program, and then also providing funding assistance for equipment and vehicle fleets to meet new air quality or climate change standards. So those are the bulk of the changes that have been made today. We do not have any sponsored legislative proposals this year, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our efforts are still focused on Delta issues as well as infrastructure funding. So with that, that's the overview of our 2016 policies, and we'd appreciate if the boards could approve that.
Thank you very much. Director Nottoli.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, Terry, I want to thank you for your presentation, but I would just note that on page 8 in the legislative policy handbook, that in the backgrounds relates to Bay Delta, I see, and I trust that it's an addition, and it's a very important addition, in the first paragraph under background. We talk about the co-equal goals, but the very, very important qualifier that we don't want anybody to ever forget as it relates to the co-equal goals, but the fact that those need to be done in a manner that protects and preserves the unique cultural, recreational, natural resources and agricultural values of the Delta as an evolving place, which is obviously built in to the water code, but it oftentimes gets lost in the conversation. So in that lighter tone, at least in our packet, is that being added? Is that?
No, I'm not sure if that was a font coloration, because that's been an existing language, I believe, in
okay,
our policies.
because ours is in lighter print, so I didn't know if you, for some reason, it was going to be deleted. I trusted it was going to be added because it's in here. But
what happened was this: when it came last year, you made comments to that regard, so it was added last year. So it was simply just the tone kind of
okay,
carried.
all right, good. Well,
So
again,
this is not being deleted. This is
okay.
This
It's very
will stay.
important. I didn't think it was going to be deleted, but I just think it's very important, and I think that as we see the conversation probably amp up more in the middle part of this year as it relates to the California water fix and measures that may be on the ballot and so forth. I think our role as a district, and I know you weighed in on the water board applications to the Corps relative to the change of place of the receipt of the water, and I appreciate Prabhakar over the holidays you sent us a copy of that. But this is just, again, it's key, it's critical, and obviously the district has certainly a lot riding on what happens certainly in both upstream and downstream, but in the Delta, and I think this is important. So thanks for adding that. I didn't know it was done last year, but
it was added last year.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments by board members? We have no one signed up to speak on this, so I'd entertain a motion.
I move approval of the item.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Bruin. Who is the second?
Hume.
Seconded by Director Hume. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item number 3 is the miscellaneous director and district engineer matters.
I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Numbers nice and brief. Okay. Next item.
For your next items, you are acting as the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District. These are your consent matters, items 4 through 5.
Okay. Does any member of the board wish to pull an item for separate vote or discussion? Director Nottoli.
Don't want to pull the item, but I did want to ask a question on item 4, if I could, Mr. Chair. The amendment was...
Can we have the clerk read it?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Item number 4, approval of the second amendment to the agreement with CH2M Hill Incorporated for regulatory assistance.
Yeah, my question is that obviously this firm has done work for this district and very able and qualified, but as it relates to Delta issues, are there any conflicts in them advising us on Delta issues for any work that they may have done on California water fix or any of that documentation? I don't know what their involvement's been, but I know that's been a challenge at times to find parties who don't have, I don't say it's inherent conflict, but it could be potentially conflicting roles in doing work at other levels that promote the, a project that certainly can have tremendous impact on this community and this district. And I'm just curious, is there any, do we do any vetting regarding that relative to any firewalls within their firm if they're doing that work? And again, I don't question any of the work that they've done, but as I read this last night, that does occur to me that we need to make sure that, one, we get what we pay for, but secondly, that there's not any internal conflicts for work that they're doing on a project that we believe is going to have significant impact.
So it's a two-pronged response. One is we've also used this firm as a sub-consultant to a different firm on a different project. It's more closer to the water issues in terms of the modeling and things. We had discussions, and there's a firewall discussion they had, and so they have that in place. This one is more permit support, more science side of things, and so it's much more removed from where the water fix project folks are and the issues related to water fix. But there is a firewall that's been established.
Has their firm done work on the tunnels project?
We don't know.
Okay.
I know they were involved extensively in a pumping station design, a fairly large project on the other side. Mm-hmm. But we had the discussions with them in terms of maintaining.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. Move the consent calendar.
Okay, it's been moved that we adopt the consent calendar. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Director Nottoli, seconded by Director Guerra. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item is the public's opportunity to address this board on any item that is not on today's agenda. I'm not in receipt of any speaker slips, so we'll move on to item 7.
Item number 7 is the award contract for the EcoWater nitrifying side stream treatment project.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. So this is one of the many projects that are part of the larger EcoWater project that we need to implement for meeting the permit requirements, the permit that we received in 2010. This project was bid in late last year, and we received 8 proposals, 8 bids, many of which are below the engineer's estimate. One of the apparent lowest bidder at the time was Flatiron, and there were a couple of issues pointed related to that bid, and I will just quickly address at a high level, and then I'm going to ask Lisa Travis to weigh in if she would like to weigh in. And obviously there's a protest. First of all, staff is recommending that you waive any minor irregularities with the Flatiron bid and award that project to Flatiron. That's the staff recommendation. One of the alleged irregularity is the listing of 2 contractors for the same work, the electrical subcontractor. In this project, we have pre-qualified electrical subcontractors, and we have also pre-qualified instrumentation subcontractors. So a bidder can only choose one from each of those lists. And also in this project, the electrical contractor is the main subcontractor, and the instrumentation contractor is the second-tier sub. That's how this project is structured. Since we require the bidders to select only from the pre-qualified contractors, both on the electrical and the instrumentation, the contractor that was selected under Flatiron was the pre-qualified electrical contractor. The instrumentation contractor is sub to that electrical. They hand wrote Tesco without listing any contractor numbers. The allegation is that that could amount to a bid shopping. In this particular case, it cannot be bid shopped because Tesco, who was handwritten there, is not a pre-qualified electrical contractor. Even if the contractor wanted to bid shop, that couldn't have been the outcome. So when we looked at it, that's a minor irregularity at best. The second one irregularity that's alleged is one of the other subcontractors is Panguli. It's a masonry work. They listed the name of the contractor, but in listing the license number, they made a typographical error on one of the 6 digits of the contractor number. Yes, they had 24 hours to correct it, but they did not, and we felt that was a minor irregularity that we could waive, and the council has provided the basis for that, and I'm going to ask Lisa Travis to weigh in.
Sure. Thanks, Prabhakar. As usual, he's pretty much summed everything up, so I don't know how much more I have to add, but you do have before you hopefully a memo with the case law citing our ability to waive minor irregularities, outlining the arguments that Prabhakar just outlined, saying why these are minor irregularities and should be waived. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I do know that both Flatiron and Myers and Son have counsel and staff present, so you might want to hear from them before you ask me questions, but it's up to you.
Okay, very good. Does that conclude staff's report?
That's it.
Okay, we do have a number of directors, a couple of directors here that would like to chime in first. Director Harris?
Yeah, I actually would like to hear from counsel for Myers, concerning their bid protests, and I'm concerned that this will end up in litigation. So if that individual could come forward.
Jeff, hold on. Well, I haven't signed up to speak, but let's have.
Oh, okay.
There's other directors here that may have questions before we have folks approach the podium. Director Hume.
Thank you. I just have a question for staff. Do we have a local preference clause in our bidding procedures?
No, we cannot. We can. So this issue was discussed a couple of years ago. We looked into it. We cannot have the local preference.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Director McGlashan.
Can you just explain why that is, or have counsel explain why?
I can, if you want to. Sure.
Go ahead, Lisa.
The Public Contract Code requires that you award to the lowest responsive bidder, and it prohibits any sort of preference on local preferences being allowed. Unless they're qualified as a small business, and then you can have small business local preferences. But in this case, and in most of the cases of this magnitude, $40 million contract, that wouldn't be applicable. So it's prohibited by law.
Okay. Any other comments or questions by directors before we hear from members of the public? Okay. If not, first up is Melody Pickett.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Members of the board. My name is Melody Pickett, and I am General Counsel for Flatiron. And first of all, I do want to say how much I appreciate the professionalism and the open and transparent communication that has been exhibited by district staff, clerk of the board, counsel for the district, and indeed Myers and counsel for Myers. So I think that it's been a good and a smooth process, which will hopefully get us to a frank and open discussion to get to the right decision. So thank you to everyone for that. Our Jason Burden will speak as well. He is the project manager and was involved with the preparation of the bid for Flatiron, and he will give you some of the facts that arose and decisions that were made during the proposal process. But I did, for my part, want to work on what I think is the key decision in front of you today, is the decision: did Flatiron list more than one subcontractor for the same scope of work? And I think that the key fact for you to consider, and the reason why I think that Myers' proposal protest fails, is that in this case, we only pre-qualified 9 electrical instrumentation subcontractors for the work. San Joaquin Electric was one of those subcontractors, and Tesco was not. So there's really not the opportunity, as staff has said, for us to bid shop between the two subcontractors. We identified Tesco as a decision we made to give, not a mistake, but a decision to give the district more information, to let them know that we were using, or that San Joaquin was going to use, a pre-qualified instrumentation provider. I want to point out to you a case, a fairly recent case that was cited both by district's counsel in her memo and in my response letter, the De Silva case. And that is a case that supports a decision by the board here to find Flatiron's bid as responsive. In that case, De Silva listed a subcontractor that it was not required to list by the bid, by the requirements of the bid. The Court of Appeals found that where there is information, additional information, which is unnecessary but accurate, not deceptive, didn't operate to shift the work from another subcontractor to this listed subcontractor, and was not an attempt to get around the requirements of the bid, that the owner properly found that that bid was responsive and awards should be made to that bidder, even though the information was additional and not required. And so they found it to be not a material error or mistake that could potentially be protested. So I think that case is really on point to the facts that you have here before you. We've given you additional information. It was accurate. We weren't it wasn't deceptive in an ability, giving us the opportunity to do a couple of things, which Myers' counsel is going to assert to you. There was no potential for Flatiron to claim that it was a material mistake and decide later on to maybe assert that it could withdraw its bid without forfeiting its bond. There was no ability, because of the pre-qualified nature of the subcontractors, to bid shop between it and Tesco or with other suppliers. And so I think that with that potential and those issues not being even a possibility with these facts, that we urge the board to approve the recommendation of staff and award the contract to Flatiron. There are a couple of other issues, the license typo of the license number of Pengilly, and another appeal that was raised by Frost Tile. And I think that the memorandum of council deals adequately with those issues, and Jason will also give you some of those facts. So unless the board has some specific questions on those matters, my intent is not to raise those issues.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Pickett? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason Burden. And just so everyone's aware, Madam Clerk, please let me manage the clock. Just so everyone's aware, I'm going to give equal time to both parties. Ms. Pickett she took 5 minutes. I intend to give the same amount of time between the two speakers to the protesting party. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you guys about this issue. My name is Jason Burden with Flatiron West. I want to address the first of all, the electrical listing and issue that's brought forth to you guys, and clarify the relationships between the electrical contractors and the instrumentation contractors, so you guys are fully aware of those relationships. First of all, we listed San Joaquin Electric, which was to us the most competent and low bid electrical contractor, which was pre-qualified by the district for that scope of work. San Joaquin Electric is not a instrumentation controls contractor. They subcontract that work to a third tier or a subcontractor to them, which would be a third tier subcontractor to us. In this case, it was Tesco Controls. Tesco Controls, again, was a pre-qualified instrumentation and controls contractor, which was pre-qualified by the district as well, not by Flatiron. We've worked with Tesco in the past. They're very capable of doing the project. San Joaquin Electric elected to utilize Tesco Controls as a subcontractor to them. We intended to be open and transparent with the district on our listings to confirm to the district in our listings that, one, we selected a pre-qualified electrician, which was San Joaquin Electric, which we listed, and two, by declaring the instrumentation and controls contractor that San Joaquin was going to utilize for the instrumentation and controls portion of their contract. During the bid processes, we do extensive amount of outreach and coordination with all of the suppliers and subcontractors on these projects. One of the first steps that we take is to contact the electricians to find out who in fact is actually going to cover or carry the instrumentation and controls contracts, because some electricians carry them, some do not. Some request the general contractor to carry them. In this case, San Joaquin Electric elected to carry the instrumentation and controls contract. We did not, at that point in time, once we confirmed that the electricians are going to be carrying those contracts, we do not do any outreach to the instrumentation and controls contractors, because we feel that would be a conflict of interest between us and the electricians. The electricians make the selection on the instrumentation controls. They tell us who they're selecting, and we put it on our bid documents so that the owner, in this case the district, is aware of who was selected, and that the district can confirm that in fact that instrumentation controls contractor was a pre-qualified firm, which they were in this case. So we don't feel that we made an error in the listings with San Joaquin and Tesco. We think that we were open and transparent with the district in that manner. Secondly, with the masonry listing issue, we did make an error. We made an error with the contractor's license number. There was a single-digit error with the Pengilly Masonry. Pengilly Masonry is a reputable masonry contractor in this industry. They do a lot of masonry-type structures and treatment plant, water treatment, and commercial work for that matter. We made an error. We missed a single digit in their 6-digit license number. The license number that was put down on the document was for a firm that is no longer a contractor. That license was actually expired in October of 2015. That contractor that was tied to that license we looked them up after the fact, was actually a drywall general building contractor, which has no means or method, could not perform the work of a masonry contractor on a treatment plant of this size. So yeah, it was an error, but there was no intention of bid shopping. There's a substantial amount of outreach that's done with the masonry contractors at bid time and during the bid process, and we have every intention to award that work to Pingilly Masonry if the board awards this contract to us. The other issue that we were not aware of was the issue with Frost Tile. There's a protest from Frost Tile, is a ceramic tile contractor. We were not aware of this until about last week, that there was a protest on that issue, that we did not solicit them for a bid for this project. The claim that Frost Tile had on this issue was that we misrepresented ourselves. There's a number of advertising requirements for, as you guys know, for state revolving funded projects for good faith efforts, which we're mandated on where we advertise. We go above and beyond. There's an enormous amount of agencies that we advertise for interest for both material suppliers and subcontractors. We can't control all of these agencies. In this case, it was one of the independent builders exchanges. We can't control how they list us in their database. They listed us as a subcontractor. We're not a subcontractor on this project. We are a general contractor. We attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting. We signed in as a prime general contractor. All of our advertisements that we send out to the agencies stated that we were a prime general contractor soliciting bids for specific material and subcontracts. The agency listed as a subcontractor, Frost Tile, felt that we didn't properly identify ourselves to them. Looking at the documents that were provided last week, they did provide a dollar value for their scope of work, which we would not have utilized them anyways on this project because they were not a competitive number. That's kind of where it is with the Frost Tile issues. I think that addresses the 3 items that we are aware of. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Burton? Okay, thank you. Okay. The 2 previous speakers used a total of about 12 minutes. I'm going to offer that to the next 2 speakers representing Myers. I'm going to set the clock at 12 minutes. You could use that in any combination of between the 2 as you so choose. So first up is Clinton Myers.
Hello, my name is Clinton Myers with Myers & Sons Construction. I'm the Vice President. Thank you for having us and being willing to listen to our protest today. So just to give you a little bit of background, we're Myers & Sons Construction. We started in 2010. Our headquarters is in Sacramento County. I live in Sacramento County. I'm in Supervisor Peters' district. We started as a certified small business with Department of General Services. We grew from being a small business to doing revenues in excess of $150 million a year. We worked hard on this project. We followed all the rules of this project. We worked with Tigert. Tigert's one of our listed subs doing all of our dirt work. We feel like we followed the rules. We listed everyone correctly. And at the end of the day, we believe that's what should prevail. And I'll let our lawyer get into the legalities of it all. But thank you very much. And do you guys have any questions of me?
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Myers? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Final speaker is Matthew Weber.
Thank you, Chairman Serna and board members. My name is Matthew Weber from Downey Brand, and I represent Myers & Sons Construction. And I want to make clear what Myers & Sons is asking today is only that the board hold everybody to the bid specifications. That's what we're asking. There are bid specifications, and then there's the law, the public contract code, and we're asking that the board just hold everybody to those requirements. And specifically, the requirement of listing subcontractors. The public contract code and the sublisting law requires that general contractors list subcontractors for each scope of work that's going to be performed by that subcontractor. The law and the bid specifications specifically require listing only one for each item. And the reason for the law that the legislature is very clear on is that you don't want any appearance or any ability to potentially bid shop or bid peddle. And bid shopping is basically when the general gets the job, the general goes to its subs and suppliers and says, okay, I have the job now. If you want to perform, you need to lower your price, and then the general puts the money in their pocket. The law is specifically to prevent that, or the appearance of that. And the legislature continually tweaks that law. Last year, or 2 years ago, it required that you list the license number. And the way you prevent that is you list one subcontractor for each scope. Here, they listed two. What you did not hear is that both San Joaquin Electric and Tesco hold electrical licenses. They hold the identical license, and in the eyes of the state of California, San Joaquin Electric and Tesco can perform the exact same work. There is no difference in the work that they can perform. They are both subcontractors. Under the public contract code, a subcontractor is defined as somebody who holds a license issued by the CSLB and who can contract with the general. Tesco and San Joaquin Electric meet that requirement. Flatiron listed two. If you look at their bid, they had typed in San Joaquin Electric, and then they wrote and Tesco. We're not saying that they bid shopped, but they had the ability to bid shop because they have two subcontractors for the same scope of work, both licensed. The response that you've heard today as well, there was pre-qualifications for electrical, so we couldn't have bid shop because we could only pick one electrical. Addendum 1 to the contract, the bid documents, stated that qualifications were to be required for subcontractors except pre-qualified subcontractors, which arguably means you could have listed any subcontractor even if they weren't pre-qualified. But even if that weren't the case, the law is very clear. The public contract code and your own bid specifications say you can list only one per each bid item. And so the issue is that to award the contract to Flatiron, you heard here today, you have to waive an irregularity in the contract. They did not comply with the specifications. You have to say, we know they didn't comply. We're going to waive that because we don't think it's material, and we're going to award it to them. The problem with that is it opens the project up to challenge. Could be a challenge from Myers, could be a challenge from any one of the other 7 bidders, because you have waived an irregularity, you've taken an action above and beyond the bid documents. And if you're wrong in waiving that irregularity, it can do one of two things. It could delay the project, or worse, the project could start, and then the court could say, hey, you have to invalidate the contract and rebid it, which would be obviously not only the time, but the money and delay the project. Whereas to award it to Myers, you don't have to do any of that. You have to award it to the lowest responsible bidder. That's Myers. Myers' bid complies with all the bid specs. There's no irregularity that needs to be waived. And if you award to Myers, there's no challenge that can be made. Having done these for years, it is clear that if you waive that irregularity, it's a very clear challenge that can be made. Whereas if you award it to Myers, Myers is the lowest responsive bidder, and all you're saying is Flatiron, you acknowledge you had mistakes. We're not going to waive those mistakes, and we're going to award it to the party who doesn't have any mistakes. The other issue is basically because it's a pure legal issue. Should this get into the court, there's likely to be not any deference provided to the agency's decision. It's likely the court will make the decision on its own. I did want to address Flatiron's claim that the De Silva case that just came out from the 3rd District was right on topic. In fact, the De Silva case there was an issue about 2 listed subcontractors in that case, and the Court of Appeal said we're not going to reach that issue. So the De Silva case didn't reach the issue that is before this board today. It was raised, but it wasn't reached. And today, basically, what you have is a clear violation of the listing law. You have 2 subcontractors listed for one scope of work. And the other thing that's important to note is what you've been told by Flatiron is Tesco is a supplier to San Joaquin Electric, and therefore they just said, hey, San Joaquin's providing this part, this work, we're just going to give you some more information. However, if that were the case, if you look at page 1 of 15 of the subcontractors in Flatiron's bid, which we attached to our protest letter, it says electrical instrumentation, which is typed, San Joaquin Electric is typed, as is their license number, and their business address. And then handwritten, next to San Joaquin's name is 24.39%. What happens is they write an and in hand, and they write Tesco in hand, and then they cross out the 24.39, and they write 24.97%. So by adding Tesco, they added a percentage of work. So if, as they're claiming, Tesco was just a supplier to San Joaquin, you wouldn't need to add a percentage of work when you added Tesco's name. Again, this shows that there's a violation of the listing law, and what it does is it opens up this potential award to substantial challenge and most likely delays. And it's not my intent to threaten that. That's not what we're here to do. We want the board to force the contractors and let the contractors know for all future projects, you comply with our bid specifications, you can get a job with us. You don't comply, we're not going to bend over backwards because you messed up your bid. That's not what the specifications are for, and that's not what the law is for. So we would request that with those issues, and as they acknowledge, they improperly listed the license number for one of their subs. The code, the public contract code, gives you 24 hours to fix that. They didn't fix it within the 24 hours. It's again a clear violation of the law. But we request that you award it to Myers, the lowest responsible bidder, and honor your bid specifications in the law. And then I'll answer any questions should anybody have any.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Nottoli?
Yeah, my question is not so much for Matthew as it is maybe for Lisa. Lisa, on this point, I know, again, in reviewing the documentation that was provided by several parties, including the staff, where they actually adjust the percentage of the contract, and I know you were pondering that as Matthew was speaking, so could you address that as to how that weighed into certainly your opinion offered to us, and whether it has any material?
Sure, I think...
Mr. Weber, you can go ahead and...
Okay, I was going to ask.
Yeah, yeah, I just didn't know if he was going to get any feedback. That's why
it's up to you if you want to stay or not. But I mean, to me, his argument is pure speculation. You have absolutely no way to prove that they first wrote in Tesco and then crossed out 24.39. I mean, that's pure speculation. So I don't put any weight into that argument. We don't know, for all we know, they could have crossed out 24.39, written 24.97 because they made a mistake on the percentage, which they're entitled to make that
San Joaquin
correction.
in there and not add Tesco at all and still...
Right, you can also make the argument that San Joaquin Electric was always going to perform 24.97, but they just wrote it down wrong the first time. So his argument is purely, with all due respect, speculative on when and how and why that was crossed out.
So that doesn't change your view on this in any way. I want to be clear. Again, I don't know what order. I understand your point about what order, but because all we have is the paper that's written on.
Right. So we can't say the order. We can't read into the intent of that. And also, if I may, while I'm here talking, the threat of litigation is valid from either side. There would be nothing to prevent Flatiron from suing us if we award to Myers. They have just as good arguments the other way, because the law does allow, when there are minor irregularities, the law allows that they can be waived. So simply awarding to Myers does not prevent litigation on the other side. As far as his argument regarding following all the rules, in this case, I would argue that obviously we are arguing that Flatiron did follow the rules. They listed an electrical subcontractor. As Prabhakar said, and as the materials prove, there's no way that Tesco would be allowed to be an electrical subcontractor. They may have an electrical license, they may have all the requirements, but they do not meet the district's requirement of being an electrical subcontractor. So that argument also holds no weight, that you can bid shop and Tesco could be the electrical subcontractors. That's simply not true. They aren't a pre-qualified electrical subcontractor for this contract. Flatiron just provided additional information, and as Ms. Pickett said in the recent De Silva Gates case, you are allowed to provide information over and above what is required to be listed, and in this case, that's what Flatiron has done.
Okay, could I just add one other question while I have the floor? And then, as it relates to the second item on the Pengelly Masonry and the error made in the actual licensure number, any additional information based upon what you've heard here this morning on your view on that?
I think that the argument still holds true. We were able to identify who the masonry subcontractor was, even though there was an error in the listing of the number. They were transposed. There would be no opportunity to bid shop based on that error, because we know that the other contractor that
not going to build a building out of drywall.
They couldn't do the work anyway. They weren't qualified, and B, they didn't have a license. So the purpose of the subcontractor listing law, as Mr. Weber said, is to prevent a general contractor from trying to squeeze the subcontractor into getting them a better price. In this case, the listing of an incorrect number would not have made that opportunity for the general contractor. So I think it is an immaterial irregularity and can be waived.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Director Bruins, then Director Kennedy.
Thank you. My question is probably to Prabhakar or his staff, and that is it typical for subcontractors to list their subs on our bid performances?
I'm going to just say not typical, but I'm going to ask more Vic Chiotani to come up and because he's seen all the bids, he'll answer that question.
And then my follow-up question to that, Vic, is when that happens, such as in this case, how do we respond, or what do we do?
So as far as for typically they don't. It's a second-tier sub. The Public Contract Code requires a listing of any sub that's performing more than 0.5% of the work. And so we don't see those second-tier subs. What's a little bit unusual for this project for the district is we pre-qualified electrical contractors and instrumentation subcontractors. And so in this case, the additional information was to show that they were utilizing one of the pre-qualified instrumentation subs. That instrumentation sub was a sub to the first tier sub, San Joaquin Electric. So typically we don't see that second tier sub, but in this case they're a little bit different circumstances maybe.
So did any of the other bids provide that information?
To my knowledge, none of the other bids did.
So when you opened their bid and found them to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and you saw the listing of Tesco, did you question them on that?
Yes, we did. Okay. And hence some of this information came about.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Director Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want a couple of comments. One is I want to commend District Council. I think that the research and the arguments made are solid. Anybody, and a number of the people up here have been involved in the bidding process, particularly in larger jobs. Things are happening fast and furious at the very end, and these things happen with the crossing out and all of that. It's not unusual, and it's one of the reasons that the law has found that immaterial mistakes, can be overlooked. I think that these are immaterial. The statement made that Myers, awarding this to Myers would mean that it can't be challenged is simply not accurate. I mean, it could be challenged on a number of things. Anybody can challenge anything, but the fact that we would be approving a non-low bid in itself would be challengeable. I think that the case law is there, the arguments have been made, and so I'd like to move staff recommendation.
Okay, before we entertain a motion, however, we do have some other directors that would like to chime in.
Can we get a second just so we can get it on the floor and talk to the motion?
Is there a second?
I'll give it a second for discussion purposes.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Kennedy made the motion, Director Bruin made the second, Director Christoph, and then Director Hume.
Yeah, is our bid process so difficult that there are a number of errors that always seem to transpire?
I don't know how to answer that question, but I'll try. We have fairly complex projects. So there are, as you heard this morning, subs, the second-tier subs, their pre-qualifications. Yes, in the earlier parts of our bidding, we have made some errors in terms of the drafting of the documents. It could have been better. I mean, not this particular project. There's always, if you can look at it and say, there's always things people could look at it differently and come to a different conclusion.
Yeah, but these are multi-million-dollar projects, and one would think that every I and every T would get properly crossed or dotted.
In this case, people have looked at second sets of ice, third sets of ice, have looked at it. So in this case, it's not so much the district error that we're talking, it's more the contractor interpretation and listing. So, I mean, you might, so setting aside for a moment that the materiality or the materiality of the error that's been made, or even the alleged error that's been made, you can say 7 of the 8 did not list a second contractor, I mean 2 contractors. So 7 you can say that have read correctly or followed the instructions. They were properly clear for them. So what I'm trying to say is when you have this complex and so many things as part of it, it's not uncommon. So as a matter of fact, I've talked to all 3 apparent low bidders in some ways, and one of the concerns on the street is that if you basically take any error, how minor that it may be, and use it as a grounds to say, well, I'm going to throw it away and rebid, it does 2 things. One is, especially we got a $500 million project, it's on the street, and we're going to be getting bids in 3 weeks. The concern is they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars bidding, and in doing so, they're actually doing things at the very last minute. So errors can happen. But it's our job, they expect it's our job to actually look at whether they're material or immaterial, and then make the determination. If we simply throw out, it dissuades them, number one. Number two, they also contend that by throwing these bids out, it's an ultimate form of bid shopping on our part, because now everybody sees what everybody else bid on this project. When we rebid, everybody's trying to race to the bottom, right, which would not be a good outcome. In this particular case, we have bids that are below engineers' estimates, many of them are, and they're good bidding. But there are 2 issues with the low bidder, and then we found that they are immaterial with our due diligence that's been made after it. So to answer your question of whether we can make a 100% error-proof, we hope to think we can, but it's also interpretation, how people are looking at it, that can cause these things.
Okay, because I can tell you from our city, I mean, we've built bridges, we've built roads, we've built a whole bunch of stuff, and and we deal with this issue all the time, but we certainly try to give staff enough leeway to make sure that whatever they are bidding on is something that is clear and concise, and it's not so complicated that a contractor can't perform and fill out the forms correctly. So, okay, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we certainly don't have any kind of projects in West Sacramento that are $2 billion or whatever. I mean, but at the same time, it's something that we try to really keep a close eye on.
Which we are. Again, we're using second set, third set of eyes to look at things. Okay. It's not so much the size of it, it's the complexity of it. What's all the different subcontractors, the trades that are involved, and also the pre-qualifications adds another layer of complexity. So there's a lot of these things that can happen.
Okay. Okay, Director Hume, then Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make some comments, and I don't want staff to feel like I'm being critical because I appreciate the size and complexity of these projects are unusual. I mean, we do, all of our jurisdictions have infrastructure projects and the like, but rarely do they reach into the tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. That being said, however, it seems like we can't hardly get out of the gate on any of these projects without a bid protest. And I don't know if that's due to the size and complexity of the proposed projects or if it's due to how staff applies the criteria. And what I mean by that is it seems like in some cases we are super sticklers for the letter, and in other cases like this, we choose language that is permissible. We can determine these things to be immaterial, and then that opens up the door for a protest. So, and then thirdly, I appreciate that at the end of the day, staff is looking out for the bottom line of the district, and $592,000 difference is not immaterial from a cost standpoint. However, when the next nearest bid, other than the two entities represented here today, is almost $2 million more, I think obviously they had sharpened their pencils pretty well, and you could compare the two as being lower than anything else considered. So back to my question, and I apologize if I was on the board at the time, but I didn't recall our conversation about a local preference. I think it's a shame that the contracting law does not permit that, because I think any time that a public agency is spending public dollars, if we can keep those dollars going to the local families, the employees of Myers are ratepayers of the district, the suppliers of Myers are ratepayers of the district. Not to say that Benicia is that far away, but it is not in the district. And so I just think that we, as public servants, ought to be able to look at keeping those dollars local. And that being said, I think we just as easily could have made the determination that, while you can't determine whether or not the 24.39 was crossed out before they added Tesco or after they added Tesco, the fact that there was cause and reason to reject this bid when your next lowest bidder was a local contractor should have maybe had a little more weight than was given. So I'm going to vote against the motion if it moves forward for those reasons.
Okay, Director Lee, then Director Harris.
Thank you, Chair Serna. Let me just say this certainly feels like deja vu, and that's my concern. And along some of the concerns that the other directors have mentioned is I think perhaps maybe a closer look at our process and our procedure, making it clearer. My hung up here is one, the mistakes that have been made. My question here is the other folks who have put in bids, were there any similar mistakes that were made as well?
The third one had some. I mean, first of all, we only looked the bottom three first, and then if we need, then we go further up. So once we looked the first three, and then the third lowest also had an irregularity.
Okay, that's not Myers, was it?
No.
Okay.
So
Myers didn't make any mistakes?
We did not see any errors.
Okay. The other concern I have here is, yes, you can always have legal challenges, but to me, I put on my magnifying glass whenever attorneys weigh in, and this certainly is overwhelming with the number of attorneys that are involved already. What are our options, in the event that we did throw this out and went back to bid?
So there are three options, potentially more than three. The option is the recommendation that you have in front of you. That's number one. Number two is to actually not accept the recommendation and award to Myers. That's number two. And an option that perhaps takes all of this out is throw all the bids out and rebid. So those are three immediately viable options. Again, based on the alleged errors and things, what we've looked at, and all the reasons that the council and I have summarized, we felt it was right thing to go ahead and award it. And also adding onto it, because of the what this tone that it sets for the other bids that are coming just on the other side, in terms of how we view any errors and how we take actions. So all of that taking into consideration is how the recommendation came, not just in isolation of this particular project. So, like I said, we still have 3 options.
And can I add something to that, Director Lee, to answer your question regarding whether or not there was errors in the other bids? Prabhakar has acknowledged that the third low bid did have errors. And I will say that, and maybe Flatiron wants to discuss this, I believe that there was an allegation that Myers' bid does have errors in that they can't meet the experience qualification. And also that may take the second option of awarding to Myers off the table because Flatiron did not have an ability to protest the award to Myers because we were recommending that they get the award.
I see. What option would give us the least amount of exposure, legal exposure?
For legal exposure, the reject and rebid would be obviously, we always have, and I've said this before, the opportunity and ability to do that. From a scheduling perspective and from a dollars perspective, because we do have a bid that staff and council feels is defensible, we don't recommend that option today, but the board always has that option.
And in the event that we were to reject this, how does that impact the timeline?
So it'll affect, there are 2 things associated with it. So I'm going to ask Ruben to chime in a little bit here. This is a project that we have to finish 2 years ahead of the permit required date because this removes ammonia, some portion of the ammonia early. And there's a legal settlement associated with the date that we settled with the water contractors when they had a claim against, and we said we would do this. And so we are potentially in jeopardy, and potentially there may be some payments that might have to be made related to that settlement if we miss the date. Now, I'm going to ask Ruben to address some of the timelines and what happens.
So the settlement agreement with the water purveyors has 3 key provisions, and these are deadlines in advance of the permit requirements. So number 1, by May of 2019, we have to have this facility operational. We have to remove 3.5 million pounds of ammonia, and that has to be done by May of 2021. So if we rebid, that would add 3 to 4 months to the project schedule. We have to re-advertise, we have to allow the contractors time to bid, we have to bring it back to your board. So building that into the delay, we'd have this facility operational roughly by February of 2019. That's in advance of the startup required by the settlement agreement. So it appears we'd be okay on that. Then we have to remove the 3.5 million pounds of ammonia within the next 2 years. That is tight. We don't have any more. If we delay by 3 or 4 months, we use up our float, our extra time. If things go smoothly, we could meet the requirement, but it's close. If we don't meet the settlement requirement, there is we have to pay money back to the group, to an environmental group. That penalty is based on $2,850 for every 10,000 pounds of ammonia we do not remove. So, for example, out of the 3.5 million pounds of ammonia, if we don't remove 1 million pounds, as an example, the penalty would be $285,000 back to an environmental group. So that's the kind of risk we're looking at. We don't remove 1 million pounds, as an example, we have about $285,000 penalty. If things go smoothly, we can get it done, but construction sometimes get delayed. This is a biological process, takes some startup time, but it is possibly doable.
Then the other question I have is for the attorney. Let's play with some timeline here. In the event that there was lawsuits being filed, give me an estimate of how much more time that would take.
The prior contract that was litigated, and it was litigated on an extremely, extremely fast timeline because all the parties cooperated and the court allowed us to. I believe the board awarded in February, and the litigation was concluded in July. But again, I would not call that typical.
It's about 6 months.
So 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
And it normally would be a lot longer than that, but.
Thank you for your answers. Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer this alternative motion. I would like to entertain, see if there's a second, but I like to move to throw this, to go back out and to throw this bid in, or to throw it out, I'm sorry.
Reject all bids.
To go back out to
Can I
bid.
ask for
There you go.
clarification? Are you rejecting all bids or just rejecting the staff's recommendation?
I think running the risk of facing litigation, I would reject all bids and go back and on a follow-up to that, make sure we tighten up our rules and regs so that's clear. Because, again, sitting on this board for about a year, this is the second time I've seen it, so I am concerned.
All right, we have a substitute motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Guerra. We do have other directors that are in the queue to speak. Mr. Weber, if you could please have a seat, I'd appreciate it.
I just wanted to address
please have a seat. Thank you. Okay, Director Harris, and then Director Guerra.
So my question is to counsel for Flatiron. Due to the irregularity about the contractor's license number for Pangili, were you offered the opportunity to correct that mistake within 24 hours?
Could you come up to speak? Could you come up?
Can Jason answer?
That would be fine, sure.
The issue we had with any changes on these bid docs is the bid date was supposed to be on a Thursday. There was a last-minute addendum that moved the bid to a Friday. Typically, we have a 24-hour period to make any modifications to a bid. A small window of time, 24 hours on a Friday. We didn't know how we would make any changes to a bid on a Saturday.
Were you alerted of the irregularity? And so you knew about it, and you knew you had to change it?
We did not know at the time, but even if we found out, I mean, we wouldn't have known until Monday morning of the following week.
Okay, thank you.
Can I address one more thing? The listing, crossing out of the percentages on our electrical light listing, it had nothing to do with Tesco. What happened was San Joaquin Electric was not the lowest price on the electricians. The lowest cost electrician could not bond the job. We found out at the last minute. So we had to cross out that percentage. We paid a premium to go to the next capable electrician. That's why the percentage jumped in the electricians, because we had to go to another contractor who could actually bond the job.
Thank you. Director Guerra, then Director Carr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think there's a couple things here that concern me. One, we're talking about, I think as Director Christoph mentioned, it's a $40 million project, of which we have about $500,000 in difference between two competing vendors. And I think one of the things that resonated the most here in the conversation, it's that the Public Contracts Code, it's not only just the ability, dictates that it's not only just the ability but the perception. And from a public government standpoint, why I second the motion was my biggest concern here is that we're going to get into, it looks like it's almost inevitable we're going to get into a legal dispute over this contract given the size of it. And as we're going through more contracts, I have some concern about how we make it as clear as possible. Maybe we can't do anything about it. Maybe it's just the nature of public contracting that you're always going to get bid protests. But it just seems that this board kind of needs to set a message about making sure that we're providing a very clear process for contracting out. The last question I was going to ask was, is there maybe there time to look at some of these some of the claims of the Silva case? I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the Silva case. It seems like a he said she said kind of a situation here with the Silva case, but it does bring question and a lack of confidence of moving forward with the staff recommendation at the moment.
Can I address that?
Please.
Since you're not, you're not a lawyer, but you know how we can argue both sides of anything. So you can interpret, you can interpret the De Silva case either way, and it's going to be up to a court to decide which way it's interpreted. I do agree that the issue of listing 2 wasn't addressed or decided in the De Silva case, but the proposition that I'm citing it for is clearly in the De Silva case and is good law. So that would be my response. We obviously, Matthew Weber and I disagree on the interpretation of the Valley Crest case as well. So that's kind of the nature of the business. So
to that point, I guess, was there conversation when you noticed in the Flatiron application that, hey, we do have both, we have a potential question because I think as Prabhakar mentioned, it's not a common situation to list both contractors. Was there a conversation, hey, that this could become a legal question, whether the contract can hold mustard? Is that?
Yeah, well, anytime there's an error, in a contract or any kind of irregularity, we are always prepared for a bid protest. Obviously, this is, as you mentioned, a large contract, and they want the business just as much as the next person, so we're always prepared to address whether or not we can support waiving an irregularity or a mistake, or if we can't, and we can't always, and then we wouldn't. But the ability to waive an irregularity and an error is a definite advantage to the district and to this board, because as we go through the contracting process, we're not going to be able to have time to rebid and reward. And I assume that there will be errors in the future, and we need to address those to try and prevent them. But if we can't, again, it's the nature of the business, as Director Kennedy said. These numbers and these percentages are all coming in at the very last minute, and the ability to waive irregularities that don't affect the price of the bid or that are legally allowable should be retained by the district.
Sure, and I understand the point of you forgot a digit. That's to me seems kind of reasonable, but the perception is the point that troubles me the most.
Right.
Okay, Director Carr, then Director Kennedy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had the opportunity to be on both sides of this equation, on writing the specifications as well as submitting the bids proposals. And the bids that we submitted were well over 2, maybe 3 feet high to win major computer contracts. And the specifications were almost as long. And it is well nigh impossible to get them perfect, even though we had all kinds of technical writers reading these things over and over again. By the time you get to the end, you've read it so many times, you're missing some obvious things. So I don't expect perfection, and fortunately, neither does the law, because the law allows us to waive minor irregularities, non-material irregularities in the bid proposal. The question before us, are these non-material? That's the question that we have to answer. So what are they? 1, a typo, where a license number was transposed. In your mind, is that material or non-material? The second was a listing of a contractor who was not qualified to do the work that was in excess of what the law required to be submitted. In your mind, is that a material irregularity? In my mind, they are not. They are not material irregularities, and I will support the staff recommendation.
Okay, Director Kennedy, then Director Bruin.
Thank you for the specifics of this particular case. I really can't state it better than Director Carr just did. I thought he was right on the money. As far as litigation, this is a $40 million bid award. You're going to get challenged. You're going to have people get up and threaten lawsuits. We have over 100,000 attorneys in the state of California. There's no shortage of people waiting in line for this business. Not that that's a bad thing.
Right.
But so, for us to throw out bids because of the fear of litigation without, in my mind, a basis for doing so other than we're afraid to get sued, which is what I'm hearing, and because of our concern of there being a he said, she said situation, which is the layman's definition of the practice of law, frankly, we're always going to have he said, she said. You have bidder against bidder. One wants the, of course, as counsel said, you can interpret it one way, you can interpret it another. What we have here is, I think, a clear case put forward by our own counsel, which, by the way, is public record now and will be used against us in any lawsuit challenging any other bid that we award. I think that the case has been made, and that's why I stand by the original motion, and I don't support the substitute motion.
Okay. Director Bruin?
Thank you. Question for Prabhakar. On the 24-hour time frame to make a correction, does that take into consideration weekends? Could they have done it on Monday and stayed within the requirement?
Yeah, so in this particular case, I want to maybe Vic answer it, but normally we open either Tuesdays or Thursdays, so we have a day to go through. In this case, I'm going to ask Vic to answer the question.
This one was it was extended to Friday, from what I understand.
That's what I believe.
So we do take into account weekends and holidays in these time frames. So essentially they had until Monday. In fact, my staff on Monday found that error. We actually checked the contractor's license and found that error ourselves. So we do count that time, weekends.
It wasn't, okay, so they had within 24 hours of Monday then?
It would have been.
For the time the error was found?
3 o'clock Monday, I think, is when we opened.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's been interesting listening to both sides of this. I guess the thought I have is that, the lowest bid has some mistakes and the question that Director Carr asked, I think, is really the bottom line. I mean, they could have done a better job of saying what Tesco was listed, why they were listed, instead of assuming that we would understand it. But did they break the law? I guess that's the bottom line, and I just don't see where they have. And so we just encourage, and I also don't see any fault on the part of staff as far as none of this indicates that our directions weren't clear. So if the law allows for additional information, I guess we could fault them for not being clear. But can we actually not award them the bid because of lack of clarity on why Tesco was listed, given the fact that Tesco could not have been a second electrical contractor because they're not pre-qualified? I just don't think there's an argument there, and I think we should approve staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Director Christoff.
I think that Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Carr have really sort of brought into focus, because as I've listened to all of the testimony that came from both sides and listened to the discussion that we've had, it seems like these are minor irregularities. I mean, there certainly are irregularities, but at the same time, it seems like they're minor in nature. And in these bid processes that we go through, I think there needs to be, really sort of cooler heads prevail. And I am going to go ahead and support Mr. Kennedy's motion.
Is that a second?
No, you seconded it. You seconded.
Oh, originally, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Should the...
Yes.
Okay.
Director Nottoli.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, I just would say that certainly this morning's input and the conversation amongst board members along with staff and those that participated from the audience side of this, I think of, giving this member a bit to reflect on, and it's not like a number of these issues are not totally clear cut, but I think my analysis, having heard this and thinking about it, I certainly appreciate all the points of view up here. I'm going to be prepared to support the staff recommendation here this morning, and recognizing that we've had, again, we have 2 fine firms before us, probably had 7 outstanding firms that bid this, but certainly those that are before us this morning. And I would just note too, and I think Director Hume and others have spoken to it, we had the conversation about the ability to look to our local community when doing business, recognizing that this district, in serving its customers and trying to, get, the required work that we need to do, along with, the best price from responsible and responsive parties, not having the ability to look to this community certainly, I think, is a bit frustrating, and we talked about that on a couple of different occasions over the last couple of years, and but that was before us this morning, and as frustrating as that may be, and how that might have weighed into all of this, into things we're still going to do. We still got hundreds of millions of dollars in awards and work to be done, and again, it doesn't speak to the qualifications of parties in this room, nor to anybody else that might be before the district, but it certainly does speak to, I think, the local aspect of both the work, the impacts that the work will and utility provide, but also the impacts while the construction is occurring and what it means to the local economy. But I'm going to support staff here today. I think certainly very reasoned arguments on all sides of the equation, but in this case, I think Mr. Carr certainly and Mr. Kennedy brought in some focus to this issue of irregularities and material or not, and again, that's not without consequence, obviously, to folks in this room, but to the members of this district that we represent. And if we reject all of the bids, we certainly can go back out, and we may or may not be back to this issue at 4 or 5 months out. But I think in this case, I'm prepared to support the staff recommendation.
Okay. So there's obviously been ample discussion up here, and we have a substitute motion on the table that we'll take up first, and then the main motion. Before we do that, however, in all fairness to the protesting party, I know Mr. Weber wanted to address the board. He did have approximately 3 minutes left out of his time, so I'm prepared to give you a few minutes here if you want to make one last address to the board.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm not going to rehash what I went over before. I wanted to address two things, essentially. The first one was I heard from Ms. Travis that there was indication that Myers wasn't qualified, but Prabhakar had indicated that there were no issues with Myers' bid, and what we had received back from the staff prior to today was that we met the qualifications. And so I wanted to address that issue. We have not heard since our meeting and providing additional information to staff that we weren't qualified, and so we do believe there's qualified. On the listing, since Flatiron addressed it, on crossing out of Tesco and the quantity, the changing of the percentages, the point I would like to make is that as you can look at the bid, there's a problem with the bid, and it lists 2 subcontractors. And the fact that you have to go beyond that is the issue. And you have to go beyond that, and you have to accept their statements. So that does create the problem, and all the problems that I highlighted before. And it seems that the board is concerned and staff is concerned with, in the future, what is going to happen if we throw out bids or if we waive irregularities. And I think, having done this for many years, the issue is if you want to avoid protests, you hold people to the bid specifications. Because if people know you're going to waive irregularities, you're going to get more protests. Because people are going to protest you to waive irregularities. If you want to avoid protests, you say, we're holding you to the bid specifications, and you heard nobody else listed multiple subs for the electrical instrument. They listed 1. And you heard that Myers & Sons had no errors in its bid. And so if you want to avoid protests, that's the way to do it. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to consider the substitute motion made by Director Lee and seconded by Director Guerra. We're going to need to do a roll call vote.
That is to reject all bids?
Correct.
So we have a motion on the floor by Director Lee, seconded by Guerra, and we are now doing the vote. Director Bruins?
No.
Carr?
No.
Harris?
No.
Hume?
No.
Gita?
Yes.
Kennedy?
No.
Christoph?
No.
McGlashan?
No.
Morin?
No.
Nottoli?
No.
Serna?
No.
Lee?
Yes.
McGarvey?
No.
And that concludes our roll call vote. So the motion fails. There were only 2 aye votes on this motion.
Okay. We will now take up the main motion made by Director Kennedy and seconded by Director Bruin. Roll call vote.
Directors Bruin?
Aye.
Carr.
Yes.
Harris.
Aye.
Hume.
No.
Gita.
No.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Christoph.
Aye.
McGlashan.
Yes.
Morin.
Yes.
Nottoli.
Aye.
Serna.
Aye.
Lee.
No.
McGarvey.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Okay, very good. Thank you to everyone on a somewhat complicated matter. Heck of a first day as chair.
Director Serna, I would like to make a few comments on how we're moving forward because it is important, and I'll make it quick. As you heard, in March, we'll be bringing to your board what could be the biggest agreement your board has ever approved, the biological nutrient removal contract, $500 million. It's
You
probably
the
our
biggest
largest.
protest we'll ever see?
Well, that's where I'm going with this.
Hey, you got to knock on wood, Mr. Tully.
So it's a $500 million project, and these contractors are going to have their staff and their lawyers looking at every bid. So in preparation for that, what we've done, as was mentioned, have gone through our specifications to ensure they're as clean as they possibly can be. Secondly, we have seen that contractors are making mistakes. So we've gone through all our previous bids and identified where those mistakes have been made from the contractor side. And we're going to provide a summary to the contractors that are proposing to bid for B&R, so they're aware of common mistakes that have been made. So we are taking steps. We are very sensitive to these issues that have occurred on protests, and we're doing everything we can on our end and on the contractor side to reduce the likelihood of that happening. But we are going to see a $500 million agreement coming up, and there will be a lot of folks looking at the I's and the T's. So we are doing what we can.
Great. All right. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 8 is the presentation on the second addendum to the Certified Environmental Impact Report for the Eco Water Project.
In the interest of time, I'll take 1 minute to summarize what this is, and if you want a presentation, we'll do the presentation.
I think you should probably err on the side of the hour and summarize as best you can.
Okay, so this is an addendum to the EIR for the Eco Water Project. Eco Water Project requires greenhouse gas mitigation, and we were going to do a solar project. And we set out to do two options. One is just to put the solar project entirely within the bufferlands area, or the second option is some in the bufferlands and some in the paved areas. That's the option. Back when we brought this item to your board for discussion, you asked us to look at entirely in the bufferlands because there's a cost savings associated with it, and we've done that. After we have done it, we went out for the proposals, and we have received 8 proposals. In the proposals, majority of them have listed a sub-option to the bufferlands option, which is we planned for a fixed mount option where the panel does not move with the sun. But the proposals came in and said, you know, if you provide a tracker where it tracks the sun, it would be fewer number of panels, but the area footprint would be slightly bigger, but you look at the shaded area under the panels would be smaller than a fixed mount thing. So instead of 17 acres, what we were thinking at the time, we needed about 21 acres. So this addendum captures those options. And we've notified the environmental stakeholders, and we've notified the neighbors to the plant property. And we had a couple of comments from the stakeholders suggesting that we should focus in the paved and developed areas, not into the bufferlands areas. And we don't have enough to do that. And that's been discussed here last year. In the interest, so we offered them an opportunity for comments here today, and we're not taking an action today. We're simply continuing this until the next board meeting, where if there are any other comments between now and then, for them to come. So at the next board meeting, you're going to be asked to approve the addendum. And also at the next board meeting, we will bring the proposals and a recommendation with whom we can enter into an agreement. So both of them will come at the next meeting. That's my report.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Prabhakar or other staff on this? Okay, seeing none. All right, next item, please.
Item number 9 is the Arcade Creek Recreation and Park District.
Do we need to formally continue that matter till next? The recommendation was.
Yeah, we do need to continue.
Sorry about that. We're continuing this to January 27th to adopt the second addendum.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Director Nottoli, seconded by Director Kennedy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay, next item, please.
Item number 9 is the Arcade Creek Recreation and Park District Pedestrian Bridge Construction Funding Agreement.
It's a consent item. I have no comments to it unless questions.
Move consent.
Okay. It's been moved by Director Morin, seconded by Director Guerra. All in favor?
We need someone from the SAC Area Sewer District. Kennedy?
Okay, it's been seconded by Director Kennedy. Same motion maker, Director Morin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain. Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah.
For your final item, you're acting as Sacramento Area Sewer District. You're adopting amendments to the Sacramento Area Sewer District Sewer Ordinance. This was introduced and you waived full reading from December 9th.
Christoph?
Very quickly, we have done a lot of outreach on this, and we haven't gotten any comments back. You've already introduced it, so basically we're looking for you to hold the public hearing, recognize the CEQA exemption, close the public hearing, and adopt the ordinance.
Okay, this is a public hearing item. Open the public hearing. I'm not in receipt of any speakers, so close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for deliberation.
Move the staff recommendation.
Been moved by Director McGlashan, seconded by Director Kennedy. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Right. That completes our agenda, does it not?
Yes, it does.
Okay, very good.
You too.
There's no further business before this board. We are adjourned.